My name is Robert Wilderness. I am 41 years old, and I work as a backcountry ranger for Olympic National Park, patrolling remote wilderness areas throughout the 922,651-acre park, where I maintain trail conditions, monitor wilderness camping, and respond to emergencies in one of America's most diverse and challenging wilderness environments. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you are watching from, please. I've been working backcountry patrol for 16 years, covering wilderness areas that include temperate rainforest, alpine meadows, rugged coastline, and glacier. Covered mountains where backpackers face some of the Pacific Northwest's most demanding outdoor challenges. This happened last September while conducting routine patrol in the Quinault River Valley, checking backcountry campsites and trail conditions in a remote area about 15 miles from the nearest road access, where wilderness regulations require permits and where camping conditions test even experienced backpackers. The Quinault Valley contains some of Olympic's most pristine temperate rainforest, with ancient Douglas fir and cedar trees, creating a cathedral-like environment where heavy rainfall and dense vegetation create challenging navigation and camping conditions. During my patrol, I was checking permitted campsites to ensure compliance with wilderness regulations and to assess any safety concerns or environmental impacts from backcountry camping in areas where leave no trace principles are essential for ecosystem protection. Around noon, while checking a designated campsite about 8 miles up the Quinault River Trail, I discovered a fully established backpacking camp that immediately raised serious concerns about camper safety and wilderness emergency protocols. The campsite contained a complete backpacking setup, high-quality tent, sleeping gear, cooking equipment, food supplies, and all personal items that would be essential for multi-day wilderness backpacking in Olympic's challenging environment. Most concerning was that all equipment appeared to have been abandoned recently, with no signs of struggle, emergency evacuation, or equipment failure that would explain why experienced backpackers would leave behind gear worth thousands of dollars and essential for wilderness survival. The tent was properly erected and secured. Sleeping bags were arranged normally inside. Cooking gear was clean and organized, and food was properly stored in bare, resistant containers according to wilderness regulations. I found no camping permit or identification that would help locate the missing campers, and there were no tracks or signs indicating their direction of travel after abandoning their completely functional campsite in prime wilderness conditions. Following emergency protocols, I documented the abandoned campsite and initiated missing person procedures while searching the immediate area for any evidence of the campers or circumstances that might explain their disappearance from an established wilderness camp. Expanding my search along nearby trails and potential routes, I found no indication of where the campers had gone or why they would abandon a properly established wilderness camp with all their essential survival equipment. 2 days later, while conducting follow-up patrol in the same area, I discovered a second abandoned campsite about 3 miles downstream, again containing complete backpacking equipment and personal items, but no trace of the campers who had established the site. The second campsite showed the same pattern: professional quality equipment properly arranged, food correctly stored, no signs of emergency or struggle, but complete abandonment by experienced wilderness campers. Over the following week, I discovered 4 additional abandoned campsites along different wilderness routes in the Quinault Valley, all showing identical patterns of complete equipment abandonment by apparently experienced backpackers. The abandoned campsites contained gear indicating different groups of campers, varying equipment brands, different camping styles, and personal items suggesting the sites belong to separate individuals or groups, rather than a single camping party. Most puzzling was that all the abandoned campsites were located in prime wilderness camping areas with good water access, level terrain, and beautiful forest settings that would be highly desirable for backpackers seeking quality wilderness experiences. When I filed my patrol reports, I documented the abandoned campsites as potential missing person cases, while noting the unusual pattern of equipment abandonment that didn't match typical wilderness emergency scenarios. 3 weeks later, I was contacted by Dr. Sarah Forestpath from the University of Washington, who specialized in wilderness psychology and had maintained interest in unusual behaviors reported among backcountry recreationists in Pacific Northwest wilderness areas. Dr. Forestpath explained that similar abandoned campsite patterns had been reported in Olympic National Park and other Northwest wilderness areas for decades, typically involving experienced backpackers who vanished after establishing apparently normal wilderness camps. She described these phenomena as possibly involving psychological effects that could occur during extended wilderness immersion, particularly in temperate rainforest environments, where dense vegetation, constant moisture, and limited visibility might create disorientation that affected camping decisions. According to Dr. Forestpath's research, Olympic's unique temperate rainforest environment created atmospheric and psychological conditions that might influence human behavior in ways that weren't fully understood by wilderness recreation research. She also mentioned that Pacific Northwest indigenous communities had traditional knowledge about areas where forest conditions could affect human judgment and where proper spiritual preparation was considered necessary for safe wilderness travel. I spoke with members of the Quinault tribe about traditional knowledge regarding safe travel through Olympic Peninsula wilderness areas and cultural protocols for respectful wilderness camping in areas with spiritual significance. They described traditional understanding that certain forest areas required spiritual awareness and proper protocols to ensure safe passage, particularly for people who weren't familiar with traditional relationships between humans and forest spirits. According to tribal teachings, successful wilderness travel required maintaining respectful relationships with forest entities and understanding signs that indicated when conditions weren't appropriate for human camping in particular areas. The elders explained that Olympic Peninsula forests contained spiritual forces that could influence human behavior, particularly among people who entered wilderness areas without proper cultural knowledge or spiritual preparation for forest travel. I continue working backcountry patrol throughout Olympic National Park because it is essential work that ensures visitor safety and protects wilderness resources in one of America's most unique and challenging wilderness environments. When investigating abandoned campsites and missing persons cases, I maintain standard emergency response protocols while being more aware now that Olympic Peninsula wilderness might involve environmental and spiritual factors that affect wilderness travelers in ways that conventional outdoor recreation training doesn't address. My name is Thomas Trailer Runner. I am 35 years old, and I work as a search and rescue coordinator for Jefferson County Search and Rescue, managing emergency response operations throughout the Olympic Peninsula region, where I coordinate rescue efforts for missing hikers and outdoor emergencies across some of Washington State's most remote and challenging wilderness terrain. I've been working search and rescue for 13 years, coordinating operations in Olympic National Park and surrounding wilderness areas where solo hikers face unique risks from challenging weather, difficult navigation, and vast distances between trailheads and populated areas. This happened last October, while coordinating search operations for Jennifer Martinez, a 34-year-old experienced hiker from Seattle, who had been attempting a solo backpacking trip on the High Divide Loop Trail and had disappeared during what should have been a routine wilderness hiking experience. Martinez was a seasoned hiker who had completed numerous solo backpacking trips throughout the Pacific Northwest and was familiar with Olympic Peninsula wilderness challenges, including weather changes, trail navigation, and solo hiking safety protocols. She had been hiking a challenging 18-mile loop trail that includes alpine meadows, old-growth forest, and mountain ridges with spectacular views of Olympic peaks. But that also requires navigation skills and weather awareness due to rapid condition changes. When Martinez failed to return to her vehicle at the Salt Duck Trailhead as scheduled and couldn't be reached by emergency contacts, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office activated search protocols and requested regional search and rescue assistance. I was assigned to coordinate the multi-agency search operation, working with Olympic National Park rangers, volunteer search teams, and specialized rescue personnel to locate Martinez in terrain that presents significant challenges for both solo hiking and rescue operations. We began search operations following Martinez's planned route along the High Divide Loop, checking all areas where solo hikers might encounter problems, or where weather conditions might have created navigation difficulties or safety emergencies. Around noon on the second day of searching, our teams found Martinez's day pack positioned beside the trail at Hurricane Ridge, a location offering panoramic views across Olympic National Park, but also known for rapid weather changes and visibility challenges. The pack contained all essential hiking equipment: food, water, first aid supplies, navigation tools, extra clothing, and emergency gear that would be necessary for safely completing a multi-day solo hiking trip in Olympic's unpredictable mountain environment. Most concerning was that Martinez's hiking boots were also beside the pack. Despite the fact that the High Divide Loop includes rocky terrain and challenging trail conditions where proper footwear is essential for safety and navigation, we found no tracks or signs indicating Martinez's direction of travel after abandoning her gear. The alpine terrain around Hurricane Ridge includes areas where tracks might not be visible, but the location offered clear views in all directions with no obvious route choices. Expanding our search operation using ground teams, search dogs, and helicopter reconnaissance, we covered extensive areas of Olympic National Park, including alternative routes and areas where confused or disoriented hikers might travel when experiencing navigation problems. On the fourth day of searching, while using technical rescue teams to examine steep terrain and remote areas inaccessible to standard search methods, we encountered something that challenged our understanding of conventional wilderness search and rescue operations. Other search operations seemed to be occurring simultaneously in the same area, with rescue personnel using equipment and techniques that complemented our official search efforts, but that demonstrated capabilities beyond current search and rescue training. The additional rescue teams appeared to be following systematic search patterns through terrain that our teams hadn't been able to access, using methods that seemed adapted specifically to Olympic Peninsula wilderness conditions and solo hiker emergencies. Around 6 p.m. on the fifth day, following routes that seemed to be indicated by the additional search activities, our teams discovered Martinez in a remote alpine basin about 12 miles from where her equipment had been found. Martinez was unharmed but reported experiencing significant disorientation about her location and the amount of time that had passed since she had left her gear on Hurricane Ridge. She believed she had been hiking for only a few hours, though she had been missing for over 4 days. Most concerning was that Martinez reported being guided and assisted by other hikers who had provided navigation guidance and shared food during her wilderness experience. But she couldn't clearly identify who these hikers had been or how they had accessed the remote alpine terrain. Martinez described her helpers as extremely knowledgeable about Olympic Peninsula wilderness navigation and survival techniques, but their equipment and methods seemed different from contemporary hiking gear and practices. When we completed Martinez's rescue and returned to base operations, we documented the successful search outcome while being careful about describing phenomena that might require additional investigation by rescue management and park authorities. 2 weeks later, I was contacted by Dr. Michael Alpinist from Western Washington University, who specialized in wilderness emergency management and had maintained interest in unusual aspects of search and rescue operations throughout Olympic Peninsula wilderness areas. Dr. Alpinist explained that similar search assistance experiences had been reported during rescue operations throughout Olympic National Park, particularly during searches for solo hikers who had become disoriented in the park's challenging alpine and forest environments. He described these phenomena as possible evidence that Olympic Peninsula wilderness retained connections to generations of hiking and mountaineering expertise, and that successful wilderness rescue might involve assistance that exceeded current search and rescue capabilities. According to Dr. Alpinist's research, Olympic Peninsula had attracted dedicated hikers and mountaineers whose knowledge of wilderness navigation and survival had been so extensive that some aspects of their expertise might continue to assist wilderness travelers in emergency situations. I spoke with veteran Pacific Northwest search and rescue personnel who had worked wilderness emergencies throughout the Olympic Peninsula and were familiar with the unique challenges of rescue operations in temperate rainforest and alpine environments. Several described similar experiences with search assistance that exceeded official team capabilities, emphasizing that such experiences seem to represent accumulated wilderness expertise from generations of Olympic Peninsula hikers and mountaineers. I continue working search and rescue throughout the Olympic Peninsula because it is essential emergency response that saves lives and supports safe wilderness recreation in one of America's most spectacular and challenging wilderness environments. When coordinating complex wilderness searches, I approach the work with appreciation for the accumulated expertise of wilderness professionals, whose knowledge and dedication to hiker safety might continue to contribute to successful rescue outcomes in ways that extend beyond conventional search and rescue understanding. My name is William Mountaineer. I am 48 years old, and I work as a climbing ranger for Olympic National Park, specializing in glacier rescue operations and mountaineering safety on Olympic Peninsula glaciers, where I coordinate technical rescues and provide climbing safety education for one of the most challenging and dangerous mountaineering environments in the lower 48 states. I've been working glacier rescue for 22 years, responding to climbing emergencies on Olympic Peninsula glaciers, including Blue Glacier, HOH Glacier, and other ice fields where mountaineering accidents require specialized rescue techniques and equipment adapted to crevasse rescue and high-altitude emergency response. This happened last July while coordinating rescue operations for David Chen, a 31-year-old experienced mountaineer from Portland who had fallen into a crevasse on Blue Glacier during a solo climbing attempt on Mount Olympus and required immediate technical rescue in extremely challenging glacier conditions. Chen was an experienced alpine climber who had completed numerous glacier climbs throughout the Cascade Range and was familiar with crevasse rescue techniques, glacier travel safety, and the specialized equipment required for solo glacier mountaineering. He had been attempting a standard route to Mount Olympus summit via Blue Glacier, following established climbing routes that require glacier travel skills but that are within the capabilities of experienced mountaineers with proper equipment and training. When Chen activated his emergency beacon from within the crevasse, and his climbing partner reported the accident by satellite communication, Olympic National Park initiated immediate glacier rescue protocols and deployed specialized technical rescue personnel. I was assigned to lead the rescue operation, working with park rescue specialists and volunteer mountain rescue teams to extract Chen from the crevasse, using rope systems and technical climbing techniques adapted to glacier rescue conditions. We reached Chen's location on Blue Glacier using helicopter transport and established anchor systems for lowering rescue personnel into the crevasse to assess Chen's condition and prepare him for evacuation from the deep ice formation. Around noon, while our rescue team was rigging rope systems and preparing for crevasse entry, we discovered that Chen's situation was more complex than initial reports had indicated and would require advanced technical rescue techniques. Chen was located approximately 80 feet down in the crevasse, wedged between ice walls in a position that would make standard crevasse rescue extremely difficult and dangerous for both Chen and rescue personnel attempting to reach him. The crevasse conditions included unstable ice formations, flowing water, and constricted spaces that created significant hazards for rescue operations and required specialized techniques beyond standard mountaineering rescue protocols. Around 2 p.m., while our team was implementing advanced rope rescue systems, we encountered assistance from what appeared to be additional rescue personnel who demonstrated superior knowledge of glacier rescue techniques and crevasse navigation. The additional rescuers seemed to have extensive experience with Olympic Peninsula glacier conditions and were using rescue methods that exceeded our current training and equipment capabilities while maintaining obvious expertise in technical ice rescue. Most remarkable was that the additional rescue personnel were able to access areas of the crevasse that our team couldn't safely reach, and were implementing rescue techniques that we hadn't learned in standard glacier rescue training. Around 4 p.m., working in coordination with the additional rescue expertise, our team successfully reached Chen and began the complex process of evacuating him from the deep crevasse, using rope systems that combined our standard techniques with enhanced methods. The evacuation required technical rope work that exceeded our normal rescue capabilities, but that was made possible through guidance from the additional rescue personnel, who demonstrated advanced understanding of glacier rescue physics and ice safety. Around 6 p.m., we successfully extracted Chen from the crevasse and transported him to safety. But the rescue had required technical expertise and equipment coordination that exceeded what our official rescue team should have been able to accomplish using standard protocols. Chen reported being assisted during his time in the crevasse by experienced mountaineers who had provided warming techniques and moral support that helped him maintain consciousness and core temperature during the extended rescue operation. Most concerning was that Chen described his helpers as extremely knowledgeable about glacier survival and rescue techniques, but their equipment and methods seemed to reflect different eras of mountaineering practice and rescue technology. When we completed the rescue operation and filed our incident report, we documented the successful outcome while being careful about describing techniques and assistance that might require additional investigation by rescue management and climbing safety personnel. 3 weeks later, I was contacted by Dr. Jennifer Icefield from the University of Washington, who specialized in alpine rescue techniques and had maintained interest in unusual aspects of glacier rescue operations throughout the Pacific Northwest region. I continue working glacier rescue throughout Olympic National Park because it is essential emergency response that enables safe mountaineering access to Olympic Peninsula glaciers while providing technical rescue capabilities that protect climbers attempting some of America's most challenging alpine VEVs. When coordinating complex glacier rescues, I approach the work with appreciation for the accumulated expertise of mountain rescue professionals, whose knowledge and dedication to climbing safety might continue to contribute to successful rescue outcomes in ways that exceed conventional understanding of technical rescue capabilities.